Alright, welcome back to Iacon, everybody. Countdown to Extinction begins where the ultimate doom left off. The Earth is in rough shape. I actually would have liked to see more of this stuff in this episode to help highlight what was at stake in the last one. But here we are with the aftermath. The Autobots are fixing up the place as best they can, but of course, Starscream is already hard at work trying to grab power while Megatron is presumed dead. He's got Dr. Archevil in his possession and forces him into his secret lab. Dr. Archevil is forced to say the secret password to get into his lab. Turns out it's actually Open Sesame, which even Starscream says is pretty cliche. And Starscream only knows that reference from Aladdin and the Prince of Thieves.
That's the one where Robin Williams returns as a genie, right?
Inside, Starscream noticed that Dr. Archevil has a big shiny death ball. Starscream wants to know what it is, but Dr. Archevil says not to worry about it. It's just his doomsday machine, you know, in case the IRS catch on to what he's doing here, and he may need to hold the world hostage to forgive his student loan debt. I hear there, buddy. Took me years to pay off film school, so I can't even imagine how much debt you rack up going to evil medical school. Starscream thinks up a rad plan. He attaches a timer to the death ball and sets it to detonate after 8 hours. Dr. Archevil doesn't like the sound of this plan because he doesn't actually want to destroy Earth. All his stuff is there after all. Starscream doesn't care, and he carries him away, planning to plunk his butt back on Cybertron, which isn't actually super far away at this point, and to find a way to harness the power of Earth's explosion. Not to nitpick, but if Archevil had a weapon that was powerful enough to destroy an entire planet, would it not make more sense to just take that ball of energy and harness all of its power? Like, what's the point of giving yourself an extremely narrow time frame to gather the energy? I mean, come on, we've all been there. What if Starscream has one of those anti-punctuality poops, and it takes longer than planned, and Earth blows up while he's still wiping? There's no second chance. Then I remember that this is Starscream, so it needs to be a dumb plan and overcomplicated. Destroying Earth is more of a statement than an actual practical means of creating energy. Meanwhile, it turns out that while Megatron is away, the Decepticons are out to play. Or more accurately, they're reduced to elementary-aged kids who fight and bicker about who gets to poke a dead bird with a stick first. We are introduced to Frenzy, or as I like to call him, Red Rumble. They're pretty much the same character, except now you can buy another toy. Megatron shows up and they're super shocked to see him.
Megatron, we thought you were...
I was what?
Dead.
Why would you say that?
We saw your ship explode into tiny pieces with a force that knocked Cybertron out of orbit. There was nothing left.
I don't remember that.
Anyway, Laserbeak pops in and catches them up on the script so far, so Megatron and his goons fly out to Dr. Archevil's lair to see what's what. Meanwhile, the Autobots are binge-watching Transformers on DVD and have finally reached Countdown to Extinction. They've caught up to where they are in real time, so they'll have to wait until tomorrow to see how it all plays out.
Everybody got that?
In the meantime, they plan to follow Megatron and his goons because chances are they're not out to take a trip to the bank. Besides, we all know Megatron's accounting is all done by Shockwave anyway. Back on Cybertron, Shockwave is trying to reach out to Megatron because he wants to know which account Megatron wants to put his AdSense payments into. Starscream comes in with Dr. Archevil. Shockwave says that they don't serve his kind here and his human will have to wait outside. Starscream proclaims that Megatron is dead and that he is now in command of the Decepticons. You know, all those guys he left back on Earth to be vaporized. Shockwave proclaims that he doesn't believe that Megatron is dead because he is indestructible. This comes across as a statement of denial and how it's performed, but so far, actually, it's played out like a statement of fact. Starscream remembers that the last few times Megatron, quote-unquote, died, and decides to play it safe and orders Shockwave to stop trying to contact Earth. He starts setting up a means to collect the Energon, but when his back is turned, Archevil, in spite, tries to sabotage Starscream's plan. But there are security measures in place on the computer and he gets electrocuted. Starscream sends him into the back to get repaired and continues as planned. The Decepticons see the Autobots, so Megatron shoots some rocks on top of them. Well, on Bumblebee specifically, because why not pick on the smallest guy? Then he sends his goons into fight, but mostly he just squares off with Optimus Prime and gets his butt kicked. He hardly even tried, really. He got thrown around and then ran off crying. Man, how can Megatron be basically indestructible, but still be a whimpering coward and sore loser? Maybe he was modeled after Donald Trump. Back to Iacon will return after these messages. We now return to back to Iacon. The Autobots continue their chase undeterred. So Megatron has a different idea. He leads the Autobots into a huge pit of quicksand and laughs at them. Of course, he leaves Laserbeak to make sure the deed is done, and the Autobots sink. Waiting isn't really Laserbeak's strong suit. He's more of a break into the base kind of guy, so he gets really impatient and flies to finish the job himself. But he gets gunned down by Mirage. Somehow this makes him turn into his tape mode, and Jazz catches him. Ironhide freezes the quicksand, and the Autobots are able to escape. Jazz puts Laserbeak into his tape deck and plays Countdown to Extinction, the radio play as read by Morgan Freeman. It's a gripping tale, and most importantly, one that tells them where the final act of the episode will take place, Dr. Archevil's lair.
And then Megatron approached Dr. Archevil's lair and said, "Open sesame."
Back on Cybertron, Dr. Archevil has been fixed right up, and it turns out that the only medical knowledge that these droids had was robotic, since it's Cybertron, so it makes sense to me. So Archevil is now a cyborg, even more so than he was before, and you can tell because he has a robot eye. Every cyborg does. He's naturally not too cool with this, but Starscream gives him the 100th "I don't care" and continues out his day. Anyway, Megatron shows up and wants to loot Dr. Archevil's lair. He sees the shiny death ball and knows that it must be the MacGuffin that they're after, so he can harness its energy. Rumble comes in and announces that the Autobots are coming, so Megatron strolls out, but he forgets to look down, so Optimus gets him with an uppercut. That's an illegal move, Prime. Jeez. Megatron and Prime are inside the lair, and Optimus points out that the shiny ball looks pretty unstable. Megatron says, "Nuh-uh," and Prime says, "Uh-huh," and before they can fight more, Shockwave calls Megatron and tells him to stop the detonator or they'll all be vaporized. Megs disconnects it and takes the ball, but it's clearly unstable, so Prime knocks it out of his hands, and Megatron suddenly thinks this is okay, and he turns into a gun so Prime can shoot the ball into space. With Earth clearly not being destroyed like Starscream planned, Archevil kindly suggests that Starscream fly back to Earth to see what happened. So he does, and that unstable energy ball flies all the way out into orbit and explodes, knocking Starscream down to Earth's surface. I can't help but feel the power of that explosion was a bit overhyped. Like maybe that would level a mountain, but completely destroy the Earth? I'm not feeling it. Starscream looks up to see Megatron is still alive. He's pulled off screen and it's implied that he's up for some pretty harsh punishments, which of course will have no lasting impact on his relationship with Megatron in future stories. Though I can assume his punishment has something to do with the reflector turning into a sturdy paddle and Starscream having a very tender bottom the next day. The day is saved and the Autobots laugh about how they delayed the destruction of the planet for one more day. Oh, and with Laserbeak still tucked into Jazz's tape player, they get to listen to Megatron's saucy romance novel he's been working on. Turns out, it's really trite and far too surfacey. Man, Countdown to Extinction is not great. I like the fact that it really builds off the previous story, The Ultimate Doom, because I love serialized storytelling. You can really feel them trying to write good kids' TV, but without the slightest idea of how to do it. Starscream is more insufferable than ever. Often I find him really entertaining, but his dick size in competition with miserable Dr. Archevil gets tiresome fast. Starscream really works best when he's being lippy to Megatron, so I miss that dynamic in this episode. The Autobots completely lack any agency over the story. They basically Google, what are we going to do this episode, and came back with follow the Decepticons, so that's what they do. If the action was fun, maybe it would make up for it, but that final showdown between Optimus and Megatron was a mess. They're barely fighting, and Optimus is constantly trying to describe to the audience what he's doing because the action on screen is completely unclear. I do like the idea of Dr. Archevil being turned into a cyborg, but that's more setting up for something interesting down the road, rather than anything that pays off here. So I'm giving Countdown to Extinction 1.5 out of 5. If there's anything of note of this episode, it's that we see Frenzy for the first time. Everyone say hi, Frenzy!
Hi, Frenzy!